YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Saturday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I'll try to be done before the second half of that game starts, even though if Arizona doesn't mount a large comeback, the game's pretty much already over with. Good evening, Kevron. Glad to have you here, as always. But the way it's looking, the game's not going to end till 11:30, 11:45 Eastern time, and I was trying to avoid it coming on here that late at night. But earlier today, I was reading some CBS projections on college football over-unders. And of course, you can find any team, but I was just reading, the 4 power conferences. And I thought, that'd be a great video to do. So we'll run down the over-under totals for every team in the Power 4 conferences. And then after I read them, we'll talk about some of the things that I think are pretty obvious if experts as we head into the 2026 college football season. And we'll go alphabetically. So we'll start with the ACC and we'll end up with the SEC. And of course, it goes alphabetically in each conference. The ACC, Boston College, 3.5 wins. California, 6.5. Clemson, 7.5. Duke, 5.5. Florida State, 6.5. Now, I've already did 2 way too early college football 2026 prediction videos, and one of the teams I did was Florida State, and I had them going 6-6, and their over/under is 6.5. So I'm right there with the experts. Of course, they put a half on about every team because it's over/under. So if they put a team right at 6 or right at 7, you have to say, hey, I could push, or I'll go with that. But, if they say 6.5, you have to go over or under. Hey there, Lead Rock. Glad to have you here on this Saturday evening. So everybody's win total is pretty much something and a half. That way you have to say over or under, and you can't say, well, I agree with that total. Georgia Tech is also 6.5. Louisville, 7.5. Miami, 10.5. North Carolina, 4.5. NC State, 6.5. Pittsburgh, 7.5. SMU, 8.5. Stanford, 3.5. Syracuse, 4.5. Virginia and Virginia Tech are both 7.5, and Wake Forest is 5.5. And Lead Rock or Ed Rock, I'm not really a big fan of surprises. The Big Ten, hey there, Cherie or Sherry, ever how you pronounce it. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel. I don't recognize your name, so I think it's your first time being here. And if it is, for whatever reason made you stop by the channel tonight, thank you very much. Feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, tell your family about the channel. Hey there, Vernon. Glad to have you here. Hey there, Claudia. Glad to have you here. This is actually just a shirt that has all the old WWE legends on it. Not from a certain, decade or year, just all the old legends on it. So that's what it has. I guess there's probably 15, 16 guys on it. I ain't really, counted them, but there's probably that many on there. And thank you for liking and subscribing, Cherie. I appreciate that. In the Big Ten, Illinois has 7.5. Indiana, thank you for the kind words, Cherie. I appreciate that. I try to video just about every day. I do skip a day on occasion, but I try to post one every day, and I try to go live about every time I do one. And I do college football, the NFL, wrestling. I talk baseball, basketball, NASCAR. I used to. That's a great question, Cherie. By the way, if I'm saying your name wrong, I apologize, but I've seen the name spelled like that, pronounced Cherie and Sherry. I'm just assuming yours is Cherie. If not, I apologize. But I used to when I was in middle school and high school, but I haven't really got a new card in probably 20 years. But, I had a lot back in the day, but at least where I am, it's hard now to find a place where you can, get collectible cards. I don't really collect football cards, although I like football. I don't really collect basketball cards, although I like basketball. Most of the cards I always have cards. And you can go places around here that might buy them from if you have any, but it's hard to find a place around here that actually sells some. And the last place that I saw that had some was about 2.5 hours away from me, 3 hours away from me. And the ones they had were really, 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 really expensive. And some people will buy them because they take them and then turn around and resell them. But the ones that I had back in the day, I kept. So, I'm not going to spend a fortune for a card that I'm going to keep because then I'm just storing it away. Now, if I was going to resell it, I would, but I always kept mine, so I'm not going to spend that kind of money for a card that I'm going to keep. But back in the day, I had a lot of them. Cherie, I don't dislike Luca, but I'm not a Lakers fan, so I don't want anybody that plays for the Lakers to ever do anything worth a darn. But Illinois in the Big Ten, 10.5. Iowa, 7.5. Maryland, 4.5. Michigan, 8.5. Michigan State, 3.5. Minnesota, 5.5. Nebraska, 6.5. Northwestern, 5.5. Ohio State, 9.5. Oregon, 10.5. Penn State, 9.5. Purdue, 3.5. Rutgers, 4.5. UCLA, 5.5. USC, 8.5. Washington, 7.5. And Wisconsin, 6.5. Well, JFS, I referee for professional wrestling. Now, I did do 1 year of Little League Baseball back in 2011. I've never refereed for basketball, but I'm sure if I ever did, I'm sure I'd probably enjoy it, but I never have. In the Big 12, Arizona, 7.5. Arizona State, 6.5. 6.5. BYU, 8.5. Central Florida, 5.5. Cincinnati, 5.5. Colorado, 4.5. Houston, 7.5. Iowa State, 5.5. Kansas, 5.5. Kansas State, 7.5. Oklahoma State, 5.5. TCU, 6.5. Texas Tech, 11.5. Utah, 8.5. And West Virginia, 5.5. Kobe was a very, very, very good player, Sharia. Very good player. Now, I'm the type of person where I'm not a Lakers fan, but, I will acknowledge that, they've had players over the years that, were good players, but I still didn't like him. Kobe was a fantastic player. Now, of course, I'm a Pelicans fan. And, of course, back in the day, they were the original Hornets. And, they had a chance to have Kobe, and they traded him. But if he'd have stayed with them, I hoped he had the kind of career he had. But I never want to see any Lakers player have any success at all because I don't like the Lakers. But I'm not the kind of person that ever's going to say, some people, if they don't like a team, be the best team in the country, oh, they suck. Well, to me, that makes you sound ignorant. Because you don't like a team, don't mean they suck. You don't like them, but they don't suck. So I can't say a team sucks just because I don't like them. But I'm not a Lakers fan. Never have been a Lakers fan. I hope they never win another game as long as they're around. It is your birthday. Well, happy birthday, Cherie. Happy birthday to you. Hope you've had the best birthday ever. And then in the SEC, we have Alabama 8.5, Arkansas 4.5, Auburn 6.5, Florida 7.5, Georgia 9.5, Kentucky 4.5, 8.5, Mississippi State 4.5, Missouri 6.5, Oklahoma 7.5, Ole Miss 7.5, South Carolina 6.5, Tennessee 7.5, Texas 9.5, Texas A&M 8.5, and Vanderbilt 6.5. Now you look at this, and there's only 3 teams that are predicted to win double-digit games. Nobody in the SEC, and then you have Texas Tech in the Big 12 at 11.5, Oregon in the Big 10 at 10.5, and Miami in the ACC at 10.5. You got to be in my next stream. All you got to do, Cherie, is come back. If you subscribe and you like the video and click the bell, you should get notified. I go live about every day, but it's usually not quite this late. I try to make it between 7:30 and 10:30 Eastern time most nights. So depending on where you are and your time zone, you have to decide what time that is where you are. But 7:30 and 10:30 Eastern time most nights, and come back on here and comment. But now I have had some people tell me that they've clicked the bell and they've subscribed and they still don't get notified. So I can't promise you, but you're supposed to get notified. So hopefully you will, and you'll come back on here again. So Cherie, thank you so much for stopping by, and come back and be with us anytime. So you only have 3 teams picked to win double-digit games. Usually all the blue bloods. Georgia is always 10 plus. Ohio State's always 10 plus. So to see only 3 teams picked to win double-digit games, one of the Big 10, one of the ACC, is kind of a surprise. Now there's quite a few teams that are 9.5. So if you pick the over on them, that's 10. But they're not picked at 10. They're picked at 9.5. So it's kind of a shock that only 3 teams are picked to win double-digit games. And then it's also very obvious, according to the CBS experts, that Texas Tech is clearly the best team in the Big 12. They're picked to win the most games in the country. They're at 11.5. So basically, everybody at CBS thinks they're going undefeated, but it's just so hard to go undefeated. They've got them at 11.5. So if you pick the over, you're saying 12-0. And they're clearly the best team in the Big 12, because, the next 2 teams behind them are BYU and Utah. They're at 8.5 wins, so they're both 3 wins behind them. So Texas Tech is by far and away clearly the best team in the Big 12, according to the experts. And then in the SEC, they've got 2 teams at 9.5 wins, Georgia and Texas. And then you got Texas A&M at 8.5. And then everybody else is under 8 except for Bama, also 8.5. So in the SEC, they're pretty much saying it's just a conference full of a bunch of really good teams, not great, but really good teams where they're just going to beat up on each other, which is why nobody has, double-digit wins. And then in the ACC, they've got Miami as the best team, 10.5 wins, and SMU, the second best team, at 8.5 wins. And then everybody else is just average, because outside of Miami's 10.5 and SMU's 8.5, everybody else is 7.5 or under. But nobody is really terrible except Boston College at 3.5. So you've got 2 great teams, SMU and Miami, 1 awful team, Boston College, and everybody else is just average. Quite a few things to take away if you believe the CBS college football experts. Hey there, Crazy Nut. Glad to have you here. And I think it's your first time here on the channel. If it is, thank you for stopping by. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Not to get too nostalgic, but my recliner, that takes me back. And that does it for for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over